Hey, what's up, and welcome back to Interpreting Stars, where today we're bringing it back to our massive James Bond preparation marathon with the 14th film in the series and final outing from Roger Moore. It's A View to a Kill. Now, in the world of James Bond, this is a lot of people's least favorite installment, and there are things in the movie where I'd actually agree with that sentiment. But I would rather call this film mediocre and monotonous than worst Bond ever. I'll try to explain myself in a second, but all of these puns that Roger Moore was famous for kind of makes James Bond a dramedy when you think about it. Let's get cracking. This review is brought to you by the word of the day, dramedy. A movie, play, or broadcast program that combines elements of drama and comedy. A View to a Kill brings Roger Moore back to the world of spying in his last outing as the secret agent with a license to kill, James Bond, when he unravels a conspiratorial plot revolving around a computer chip that can withstand the effects of an EMP blast and can basically do whatever you program it to do, including giving people or animals unnatural strength and stamina, and the villain of our plot, Max Zorin, played by Christopher Walken, plans to make his product incredibly valuable by destroying the competition, aka Silicon Valley, and James Bond must stop him before it's too late. You know what I had to say about learning that Christopher Walken was a James Bond villain? Wow! Just kidding. This movie's not as terrible as some people point it out to be. I would actually argue that the first half of the film kind of sucks, as it seems to be signifying that the plot has something to do with horse racing and cheating at the stables, which honestly doesn't sound like a spy narrative. But by the halfway point of the film, things do take a turn, and the story begins to return to a place that you can actually be entertained with. Because at the heart of the film, the plot seems incredibly reminiscent of Goldfinger, which was one of the best classic James Bond films out there. On one hand, that makes the plot incredibly unoriginal. But even though it doesn't have an ounce of originality, Goldfinger was still a phenomenal film, and a Goldfinger clone can still in part be decent. No, there's nothing very interesting about a computer chip. Almost everything regarding that stupid computer chip I didn't care about. But the film still had good Bond moments. It had a decent amount of spy gear, which honestly seemed really lacking with most of Roger Moore's films. It had a few good action moments in the film as well, like the claustrophobic elevator sequence in the middle of blazing fire, like the stuff going on underground in a cave, like when James Bond is hanging off of a fire truck ladder while it's still in motion, like the fight on top of the Golden Gate Bridge. There's stuff to love. Oh, there's most definitely stuff to love. And thank God Roger Moore isn't wearing stupid things like a gorilla costume or clown costume in this film like he did with Octopussy. No, this movie's not terrible. Octopussy was terrible. For Your Eyes Only is terrible. This, as I mentioned before, was at most mediocre and monotonous. It was business as usual. The worst part of this movie, I'd argue, is the fact that Roger Moore shouldn't be here anymore. If you're a fan of his, then I'm sure it's fine, but he's just too old to play the part right now. So anytime his stunt double performs various stunt work, you know it's not Roger Moore doing it, which by definition takes you out of the movie. Everything else in the movie is standard stuff that you come to expect of the series, most of which doesn't stand out as good or bad, like Christopher Walken, who I love to watch, even more so love to listen to. He is fine, but he's not exactly super memorable as a Bond villain. He's just Christopher Walken. His protege, on the other hand, Mayday, she is pretty memorable. Oh yeah, the other weird thing that I wanted to point out is the theme song for the film. It's gotta be the weirdest Bond theme ever, performed by Duran Duran. And you know, I think it's just a product of being in the middle of the 80s, so they wanted to stand out as popular during that time period. And maybe they did, but dang, that's some Cheeseball Factory music right there. And I don't know. As far as James Bond films go, I can't tell you that A View to a Kill is great, but I think it is a victim of too much hate. It's really just middle of the road if we're being honest, so at the end of the day, you still have to give it credit where it's due. So let's do that and talk about my end score. This is a film that my bias and unbiased agrees with and says pretty much everything in this movie. Everything. When it comes down to technical areas, when it comes down to just areas of pure entertainment, everything was fine. Nothing stood out as amazing, and this is really important, nothing really stood out as terrible. It's a pretty forgettable film, as I feel like a majority of Roger Moore's films are, especially the latter half of his films. And you know, you can take that as you will. Both my unbiased and biased scores are at 58%, averaging everything out to a final score of obviously 58%, which is a low D score, meaning that the film passes for what it is. Guys, I'd like to hear your thoughts on A View to a Kill in the comments down below. Was this a good last outing for Roger Moore, or should that have been a few films back? Let me know. As for YouTube, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button if you like this review, because there's more like it coming out. Hit the thumbs up button, because that always helps out my channel. And don't forget about the little bell icon, because that'll help notify you when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out!